5 mistakes people make when trying to grow spiritually. I'm going to try and dispel many of spiritual myths or spiritual growth myths in this video. Now, ultimately, we are all on our own journey, and in my eyes, there is no right or wrong, but I'm ultimately going to give you some of the things that have worked very well for me, and also some of the pitfalls I fell into and have seen other people fall into and will admit they've fallen into in this video, so that you can avoid those and start aligning and doing the things that are going to help you grow, contribute more and more. And ultimately, only take on board what resonates with you, because that's what's going to be true to you. That's what's ultimately going to help you. But without further ado, let's get into the video. Now, before we start, let me introduce myself if you're new to the channel, because my name is Dave and this is HeartSpace. And my mission is to help people who understand and have discovered that there is more to themselves and more to life, and to help them uncover and step into their infinite co-creative power so that they can travel the unfolding path that their heart has always been leading them towards. And that's what this whole channel is about, and all of these videos are about. So I hope you'll enjoy this one. So without further ado, after that little introduction, let's get into the very first one, going in reverse order, starting with number 5. Now, number 5 is this idea that growing spiritually will be easy, or that any level of growth will be easy. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to be difficult or arduous necessarily, and it definitely doesn't mean it's going to be complex. But in the same way, if you go to the gym and you want an incredible body, you want to be incredibly healthy, the way to get there is actually very, very simple. But it takes a lot of work, a lot of practice, doing a lot of different rituals and certain things over time. You have to really put your attention into the identity you want to become and start moving from that identity as often as you can. And with spiritual growth, it's very similar. You know, I think many people get into spiritual growth because they think it's going to be easy. They can just sit down and meditate all day and they're just going to grow, and the universe is going to make their body move and do the things they need to do and whatever else it is. I think a lot of people try and numb themselves out by getting into more spiritual practices. Now, again, there is no right and wrong, and if that's truly what you want to do, then great, go for it. But it's not really going to contribute to your growth. It's not going to really contribute to your awareness, to actually seeing results in your life. And so understand, it won't be easy, but nothing worth acquiring, nothing worth learning, nothing worth bringing in and experiencing is. And ultimately, you can learn to love the journey and the process. You know, one of my favorite sayings is do the work, trust the process. And something to add on to that is learn to love the process. You know, for myself, I can compare it again to working out. I've gotten to the point where I enjoy most of my workouts. For the longest time, I hated them, and I've been an athlete my whole life. And when I learned to love them, because I just learned to love the process of them, and there's times I still get angry at them, maybe if I think I should be in a different place. Again, that's resistance. In fact, it happened today with one of my workouts. But a lot of the time, I'm just enjoying it. I'm enjoying the process of my body growing stronger, of doing the movements, of really trying to be in the moment while I do them. And you can do this from the spiritual aspect as well. For example, meditating might be incredibly hard for you. Maybe doing it for 30 minutes to an hour might be incredibly hard for you. But you stick with it and learn to love it. And it's going to be one of the most incredible things, incredible tools that help you grow moving forward. But number 4 is a big one, and it's spiritual one-upsmanship. Now, this also happens at the religious level. You know, how many people have you met who follow a particular religion and you can just sense they have this superiority complex because of it, and that you don't follow that religion? That just because they identify and associate with a particular religion, you can tell, wow, this person thinks they're better than me and superior to me because they follow a particular dogma that I don't follow. Now, obviously, this is something a lot of people are more commonly aware of when it comes to religion. But spirituality, especially mainstream spirituality, you can see it seeping into that as well. In fact, one of my best friends is in Mexico right now. Actually, my best friend is in Mexico right now, and she goes to a place that's supposedly very spiritual, and there's some great people there, but she also talks to me about a lot of these people who are acting spiritual, but also look down on people who are not. And they'll look down on people who aren't doing the moon, you know, the moon ceremonies, or what, the sound healing or whatever else. And those are amazing tools. But we have to understand that we are all spiritual beings in the human body. You cannot not be spiritual. And you are not more spiritual because you're doing a certain ceremony or whatever else. You've kind of missed the point in my eyes if you're doing that. And so don't fall into this spiritual one-upsmanship, because that's bringing the ego into it. You know, one of the ideas is to disassociate from the ego. Use it as a tool, but to disassociate as it being the main thing. And if you just put your ego into I am more spiritual equal than thou, then you've completely, in my eyes, missed the point. Right? We are all divine, infinite, co-creative beings set here to live with our own free will and grow in the ways in which we will. I said will twice there. I thought it rhymed, and I'm like, no, I just said will twice. It's a lame rhyme. But anyway, ultimately, try not to get caught into the trap of spiritual one-upmanship, like, oh, I'm so much better than this person because I meditate every day. How many moon ceremonies has this person done this month? I've done 2. This person's probably never done one in their life. I just had my ayahuasca retreat, and this person's probably never done ayahuasca. You see, you get the point, right? This is for growth. This is for, however you want it to be, but I would, in my eyes, again, only use this if it resonates with you. I mean, again, maybe you love doing that and that's your favorite thing. I don't know. But in my eyes, it actually stunts our growth to get into this game of spiritual one-upsmanship, especially when we're all spiritual beings in a human body and we're all going through our own journey. And I think one of the best things about growing spiritually is understanding we're also one and the same, all part of the same thing, all each other. And so for me, spiritual one-upsmanship is the most cringy thing for me. Actually, when I hear people are doing it, I kind of go, ooh, like that a little bit. So I'm actually a little judgmental, it would appear, towards people who do that. But I think it's a really easy trap to fall into, and one that does not help you on your journey. So number 3 is another one that I think a lot of people get caught into, and is thinking it looks a certain way. When we think of someone who is spiritual, maybe a certain image comes to mind. You might think of someone who's sitting in a lotus position, meditating on a mountain with a man bun or whatever else it is, right? But ultimately, again, some of the most spiritual teachers, or teachers who are most connected to their spirit that I've met, look nothing like that. Now, there are those who do look like that, but I've met people like that who are so spiritually connected and so spiritually aligned and so far on their spiritual journey that look like scientists. They look like businessmen, maybe athletes. Actually, most of them do not look like the typical stereotypical look that I believe most people think when they think like, oh, a spiritual person. They're in this, special garb and they're sitting cross-legged on the beach meditating. And look, again, there are probably plenty of people who are very connected doing that. But why I'm saying this is, don't think you have to look that way to be more spiritual. You can be 100% you and still be just as spiritual as anyone like that. Ultimately, we are all on our own journey. And again, like I've already said, we are all spiritual beings in a human body. You cannot escape it. And so therefore, you don't suddenly become more spiritual because you look a certain way. Now, there are certainly things you can do. There are certain tools you can acquire. For example, I have a thing called a Q-Link right here, which helps my energy. It helps blocking EMF. From affecting me and influencing me, things like Wi-Fi. So you can definitely do things like that, but this doesn't necessarily make me look more spiritual. I'm like, yes, so much more spiritual because I have my Q-Link. No, I have it because it's a very practical use, and it has a lot of research behind it, and I know it works, right? So don't think that being spiritual looks a particular way and you have to look that way. Now, that being said, if you are drawn to expressing yourself in a particular way, and you want to wear beads, and you want to wear feather earrings, and you want to wear the robes, and that just feels so right to you, then absolutely go for it. Because in the same way that nothing is more spiritual than another in a way you look, it also means you can do that, and it's fine as well. There are, for example, monks wear particular things. There are people who wear traditional wear when they do certain rituals spiritually, when they do certain practices. So absolutely, that's fine. But don't think that is a requirement to being spiritual, because like I said, there are people I know and I mentor under that don't look anything like that. The farthest thing from that. Like one of my, the person I mentor the most under right now just looks like a typical businessman. Right? He looks more businessman, but he is one of the most spiritually connected people I've ever encountered and experienced. And you can just tell from his energy just how connected this guy is. And he meditates for hours every single day, does all the rituals, and yet he looks nothing like most people would imagine when they think of someone who would teach spiritual concepts, or who would teach you how to improve your life, or who would be very spiritually connected. So don't get trapped in this idea you have to look a certain way. Guys, real quick, if you're enjoying this video and this stuff has resonated with you so far, please hit that like button, and also down below in the comments say, I am a spiritual being in a human body. I really want you to align with that idea, to understand that we are all spiritual. So down below, comment if you've made it this far, I am a spiritual being in a human body, because ultimately, again, you can't escape being spiritual, and you're not less spiritual because you look a certain way, you're from a certain place, or whatever else. So again, like this video if any of that's resonated with you so far, and put that down in the comments. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. And number two is a very interesting one because again, this is one that I think a lot of people fall into, and it's giving your power away to gurus, teachers, masters, or whatever else. Now, any master, guru, or whatever, again, we can use whatever words. These are just words. But teacher, let's just say teacher. For example, I'm a teacher. There are many other people who are a teacher. My mentor is a teacher. There's people who are guiding others based on their experiences and what they've learned to try and help others. If you ever come across a guru or a master who says, it's my way or no way, it's my way and no other way, don't listen to your intuition, listen to my intuition, something like that, I would turn around and run the other way as far away from that person as you can. I will say this many times in my videos, and any teacher worth their salt, I will hear them say as well, that ultimately you need to use your discernment to decide whether something is for you or not. Do not just blindly follow anything. Anything I say as well. If you go to one of my videos and go, no, perfectly fine, click off and go away and only come back if it resonates with you to do so. I don't want that. I don't want, one of my mentors also said, I don't want followers, I want co-creators. I want co-leaders. And that's exactly what I want as well. Again, my mission statement I gave you in the beginning of this video is I want to help people discover what they truly are, the things that have been hidden from them, to unearth their co-creative power. Co-creative, not follower leader, like I'm a reign supreme, or these teachers are up here and you're this little person down here. Ultimately, to understand that you are a divine, infinite, co-creative being, to use that power. And the best teachers help bring that power out of you. Like I said in the beginning, to unearth that co-creative power and to start moving down that unfolding, always unfolding path of the heart that ultimately you've always had the potential to move towards. That is what an amazing teacher does. They guide. They don't tell. They don't demand, they guide you to where you need to go. And they guide you to the point where you're able to actually do it by yourself. But of course, every good person in my eyes who's growing and contributing also knows that they are a perpetual student. And they will look to the experiences of other divine, infinite, co-creative beings to help them along the way. But understand to have discernment. Only take on board what aligns with you in this moment. Maybe someone says something that's going to align to you 2 years from now. But it's not relevant to you right now. You can't comprehend it right now because you need to go through a few different things. And then you'll come back to whatever it is. I know that's been true for me in my life. At 24, many of the things I am learning now, I would have scoffed at, turned my nose up at, and deemed it a waste of time. Because I needed to go through certain things to realize that that was a very silly view of me to have, but it was the view I needed at that time to go through the lessons I needed to learn to get to where I am now. So ultimately, what I'm trying to say with the second one is don't blindly follow anyone. Be an open-minded skeptic, as Tom Campbell would say, and use your discernment. Use that gift you've been given as a co-creative divine being of your intuition. It will literally never lead you astray. When you learn to tap into your intuition, it will never, ever lead you astray. And so always listen to it. If someone says, even if they got all these followers and they have all this notoriety and whatever, and your intuition's like, oh no, don't do that, don't go in that way, don't listen to this right now, then don't. But if it's drawn to something, try not to ignore it. Because again, I was about to say more times than not, but it's not even more times than not. It is always right. So without further ado, on to number one. So number one, I mentioned earlier, briefly, in one of the other ones. And ultimately, I think once you do this, you're well on your way to mastery. Because ultimately, mastery requires repetition. Mastery requires you to become unconsciously competent at a certain skill or practice or whatever else. You can become unconsciously competent in meditation, for example. You still do it. It's still a daily practice. You can become unconsciously competent at breath work or whatever these practices are. And ultimately, to do that, you have to embrace and trust the process. And I think in our spiritual growth, we tend to create a lot of resistance around the process. Because ultimately, from my perspective, we want to come and approach life, again, from my perspective, and only take this on board if it resonates, but from a place of through me. And through me is the universe working through you. It is the universe taking you on the river, and you going along with it, instead of grabbing a rock or hanging on to a tree or building a dam on it and just lying on it and being like, I'm just going to stay right here. Maybe do that for a little bit, get some sun, then hop right back in the river and along you go. But when you're in through me, you're working with the universe co-creatively, because we're co-creative beings. We are co-creating with the universe. And when you embrace the process, which is the universal process, when you embrace the process of life, you've hit that sweet spot. When you embrace the process of life and you root yourself in that, which means you're going to be very present and very in the moment, and you keep doing that, you're going to start achieving mastery in many different things. You're going to start to be able to hook into things you can't even imagine maybe right now if you haven't done this already. Your meditations become more powerful. Your power becomes more powerful, because I truly believe your power as a co-creative being is most potent in the moment. It is most potent when you get out of here and you get into here. And you can't get out of here unless you root yourself in the moment. This takes you out of the moment. Unless you're using it deliberately as a tool to problem solve or do something right now, this typically takes you out of the moment. But when you align your heart and your mind, you have coherence, you're hooking into the moment and life and the process right now, and you are honoring it instead of resisting it, instead of trying to shortcut it. You know, you're going in the river and you try and like go through the woods, you know, to the other side, and then, you know, all these creatures and, you know, get caught on spider webs and, you know, this whole thing, you know, you go rolling down hills and life just beats you up. Because you tried to shortcut it, you tried to remove the process. And that's what happens to people when they try and shortcut the process, or they try, and it's happened to me in my life when I've tried to shortcut the process. I get burned out, or, you know, I do things that set me back further than would have if I just followed the process. And so again, if this resonates with you, take it on board. But when you fall in love with the process of life, when you fall in love with life, which ultimately means you are falling in love with the process, because that's what life is. It is a process. You know, one of my favorite quotes from Alan Watts, he's describing, you know, the primordial existence of the universe, how it came about. And he said, let's say the Big Bang was, you know, the beginning, the genesis of us. He said, then you are, a really pretty bird just flew by. He said, then you are not something that is a, you know, on the outside of the Big Bang. Like the Big Bang happened and then here you are like on the outside of it. You are the original Big Bang coming about in this particular way. You are the process. You are at the point the Big Bang is currently at. You are a part of that process. He explains it also by saying that an apple tree produces apples. It apples, if you want to verb it. And that earth, it peoples. People are not like this germ on the face of the earth. They are a part of the process of the earth. They come out of that. And you are the original Big Bang coming about in this particular way. You are the process. You are life. You are divinity. You are, you know, when we really get into it, a part of everything, connected to everything in this simultaneous process that's always been happening all the time. And that might be a bit beyond the scope of this video, but that's where I went with that. So understand that when you fall in love with this process, it's just fucking beautiful process, guys. It's absolutely beautiful process. It is absolute literal perfection when you can just understand it and really look at it in this way, that everything is okay. You live in a loving, supportive universe, and the process is perfect. So don't fight it. Don't resist it. Don't try and shortcut it. That was always, I still sometimes do it. And the universe, you know, it teaches me every single time when I try and do it. But fall in love with the process, fall in love with life, and this journey not only starts to accelerate in your growth, it also just becomes much more enjoyable. So that's where I'm going to leave you. Hopefully that has been insightful. Hopefully that has helped you in one way or another. Remember that you are loved, and I will see you in the next video.